William, your videographer from Two Hats Publishing. Welcome to the College of Complexes, being held at Barbeck's Restaurant at 8949 Garland Road, Dallas, Texas. Gently embracing the east side of White Rock Lake. When I entered, I was greeted like coming home to Grandma's house, warm and friendly. When visiting the Barbeck's Restaurant, tell them you want your reservations for the next College of Complex class.
Well, welcome to the College of Complexes. This is our 210th meeting since we started in June of 2009, or no, January of 2009. You got to get the right month. Actually, it started in Chicago in 1951 for the purpose of solving all the world's problems. They're still working at it. And so are we. We put a speaker on. We should get the music out. I don't know what happened there. Anyway, we put a speaker on every week, a different subject. We require speakers take a position on an issue, express a point of view, that to be for or against something, don't care what it is. And we give our speaker up to an hour to make a presentation. And we have question and answers, not speeches. And we have remarks, rebuttals. Everybody in the audience wants to, gets 5 minutes at the podium to respond to what the speaker said, for or against. And then the speaker gets to comment and close the meeting. Well, tonight we're doing New Year's resolutions, predictions for the next 100 years. So we don't have any scheduled speakers, so we're going to open it for whoever wants to talk and make their predictions for the next 100 years. So during the course of this, if you want to, oh my, thank you. Anyway, during the course of this, we'll put speakers up here who want to make presentations. Then we'll have questions and answers, and then we'll have rebuttals after that. So I really didn't want to be the moderator tonight. If somebody else wants to be it, I'm open to that. But Susie is supposed to be here. She isn't here yet. I was going to have her be the moderator, but anyway, I didn't want to hog the mic. You know how it is. So who wants to be? Before we go any further, we have announcements. So are there any announcements? Now's the time for announcements. Anybody have any announcements you want to make? No? No announcements? Okay. There's your wife over there. Anyway, next week we have, I'll announce that. Next week, January, there she is. There's Carolyn. She was waiting for you. I called you about 4 times. Couldn't find my wife. Didn't feel good tonight, so, but she looks good. That's the main thing. Huh? Anyway, next week we're going to have, on January 11th, we're having U.S. Senate candidate Keisha Rogers. She's going to talk about outline for the future. She made recent political history by twice winning the Democratic Party nomination for Congress in Texas' 22nd District, Fort Bend and Brazos County, south of Houston. She's now seeking a Democratic Party nomination for U.S. Senate to challenge incumbent Republican John Cornyn. Keisha's victories in 2010 and 2012 were accompanied by directly opposing Wall Street corruption of the party leadership and Wall Street dictated agenda of President Obama himself. She's a member and economist of Lyndon LaRouche National Policy Committee. She will outline her strategy to complete the unfinished business of President Franklin Roosevelt and John Kennedy to crush Wall Street, to halt the deadly march towards thermonuclear war, and to reach across the Pacific to establish a new positive course for human progress. Restore JFK's future-oriented vision, emphasizing global collaboration in all fields, scientific discussion will also revive the Democratic Party, which otherwise, in her view, has lost its way. But anyway, she's our speaker next week, and it ought to be interesting, so you're all welcome. Anyway, any other announcements? Now's the time. Anybody have any announcements? No? No one has any announcements? I can't believe it. Usually we have announcements. Somebody has something they want to say. Announcement. You have announcements?
Oh, no.
No. Okay. You signaling to you, yeah. All right. Well, we have, as long as, I guess I could be I'll start the ball rolling being a speaker for the I wanted somebody else to moderate. She isn't here. What am I going to do? Anyway. Predictions for the next 100 years. So, most Americans think it's downhill in the next 50 years. Only 1 out of 6 people expects things to get better over the next 4 decades. People will be relying on robots for everything from cooking dinner to managing their money. Overall happiness has barely fluctuated since 1972. 3 decades spawned the sexual revolution and women's rights movement, race riots and civil rights advocates, the resignation of one president, the impeachment of another, wars from Vietnam through Afghanistan, the birth of the home computer and the smartphone, boom times and bust times. Welcome. What adjustment are we going to make? Security will be everywhere. Mannequins in stores will have spy equipment. Privacy will become passé. 20 hours of YouTube every second. That's what's going on now. There's more on YouTube than there is on any other medium at this point in time. Skills have become obsolete at an accelerated rate. But don't worry, you can stimulate your brain and learn while a library of information wearing a electronically charged head cap. You know, that's something new. Start farming the oceans, grow algae due to climate change. Virtual personal assistants to do most of the work. At least 1 million robots are in existence today. This will accelerate. Machines will continue to replace people. We will be more able to control weather. However, if you change climate in your neighborhood, you will have incompatibility with other neighborhoods. So there will be a lot of strife over that. The human brain will reverse engineer to monitor human behavior. Nature will continue to be destroyed, with wildlife will in some cases become stuffed animals. Marriage contracts may be for only 1 year and renewable each year. That might please somebody, I don't know. Cars can be purchased online. CarX will deliver cars. The auto dealer will become out of vogue because people will buy online. Alternatives to auto, expansion of light rail, parking costs, different things have come in where people want public transportation. In fact, here in Dallas, we put in a light rail. It will continue. Vehicles producing their own power, much of it needed to restore itself. Network high-speed regional rail, that's going on here, and you'll see more of it. Employer ID cards will be of vogue. Chips are now put in animals to get rid of passwords. You put a chip in them and you can find them. 5 billion humans will move into urban areas. Increase of greenhouse gases, rural areas are declining. Advertisers are going online to fine-tune things to reduce advertising. No unnecessary advertising. Economy of information is coming. People can't handle issues. The Tea Party can't handle issues. Technology will grow. If Code Pink gets involved, we're in trouble. This is part of what it is. Manufacturing will further reduce the need for people. The cost will be how long it takes to put a design into a machine. Religion. This might not make people happy. Anyway, it's argued that you could put an electronic magnet on your head and of a frontal lobe and be able to stay home instead of going to church. So that's something that may happen. A genetic elite will emerge. This will destabilize society. The haves and the have-nots. The 1% and the 99% left unchecked will continue. The telephone will translate into perhaps 3 languages. The man who suggested this was from Lithuania, and he thought that Lithuania was one of the languages that would remain. Anyway, we may have a cashless society to avoid counterfeiting. We have trip passes and everything else now. 1 out of 25 sales is in quick shops today, so that may continue. We will measure for custom-made clothing. You can try on clothing for style. and then come back in a day or so and they'll produce it for you. That way you don't have to have all these clothes laying around. If you need exercise, every time you think of exercise, you can sit down. They'll have a chair you can sit in and you think about exercise. Pills may disappear because people are looking in the physical being or curing of disease a more positive direction in healthcare. Paper houses, well, it will fit to a green technology, so we may go to more wood. China is not going to make it, that's a prediction. Structural weakness will fall apart, showing signs right now, problems. There are major problems against progress. Someone suggested putting factories on chips. I don't know who did that, but electronic stimulus to replace alcohol and drugs. Customize your own utopia. You know, that's what's coming, electronic stimulus. Homogenization will continue in society. One mall looks like another. Everything becomes more of the same. No one will move to the suburbs. 55% of poor people now live in the suburbs. A lot of this is due to congestion and transportation problems. So cities will grow, suburbs will shrink. U.S. is on the cutting edge of many new technologies, all-net power, quality goods, etc. Machine vision is coming in, where a machine will vision things. There's a thought of clothing in the future. Well, if you put it in hot water, it can dissolve. You just get new clothes. You don't need them as much. Robots will win and humans lose in that sense. Some suggest that ammonia is where it's at, the next fuel of choice. I don't know why, but I heard that. Technology in a hospital will go to the home. Social decisions, communications is key. Sensors, you know, people will have sensors that go home and they'll be able to watch them. These are projections. Well, I'm just giving what I have here. Anyway, I'll be quick. Increasing illiterate education will change. Kid shows up at your house and say, "We found these in the attic. I think they're called books. Well, would you like to have them?" You know, this may happen. Convert to multimedia. CO2 is bad. Agriculture is now altering temperature of plants, so there's some of that going on. Workers of the world are much the same. We're all going to, maybe some of us will go down Union Street. People are going to be fed up with the 1% and the 99%. This disparity between rich and poor will be too great. As machines replace people, greater unemployment will be the answer. Unemployment is the greatest problem. Social Security, unemployment insurance, and a farm program is something that when Eisenhower was president, Everett Dirksen and a company wanted to dismantle the New Deal. And he said, we have to keep these things. Otherwise, it's our contract with the people. Kids don't know they need clean water. Kids that don't have clean water don't reach maturity. Danger is that most generations cannot get ahead, as did this generation, which will cause great instability. There is more and more contracting out. This will have a greater reliance. We will have to have a greater reliance on labor law and government. Contracting out is getting out of hand. In the markets system is the market system able to take care of climate change? It applies the principle as listed by Winston Churchill. The Americans can always be counted on to do the right thing after they try everything else. Today there is a race to the bottom. It started with Reagan, 401ks. It's been said that the only thing that doesn't change is death and taxes. How will this end? A shorter workday is the answer. Raising the cost of overtime will do wonders. More people working, paying taxes, less people not draining taxes, draining the social fabric. A twofold benefit: increased tax revenue without raising taxes, and less bills to pay for people that are not working because they will be working, not paying taxes, and paying taxes. But this can't happen if corporations will leave the country to go where labor costs are cheaper. The answer is to put tariffs on supplemental charges on corporations, not on foreign countries, as defined by the difference in labor costs. This will promote domestic production in both countries, which is overall better for both countries. So before shortening the workday, we have to address and cure this problem. But to address this, cure even that problem, we'll have to reduce the influence of money in our Congress. As it stands today, fascism is defined as corporations controlling the government. This is the gridlock we face today. We need to establish free airtime for general elections, maybe the best last 90 days of a general election. Then we'd be in a position to vastly reduce the gridlock and be able to do the things that must be done in order to provide for a robust society that will not spend its time fighting with each other, with itself. So that's it. Thank you. I said too much. All right, who's next? I was trying to get. Oh no! I was trying to put enough out here that you would get interested in. You know, this is an icebreaker.
About 30 seconds. So
Well,
I'll scratch half of it.
come on up here.
It's a tsunami, okay. So don't take your
I just gave some ideas.
Okay. My name is Curtis Muldrow, so I'd like to begin with my little, about 15 or 20 of what I had written down. I've had to scratch off, so I'll just start with what I have now. In terms of money, we'll be in a completely cashless society. No more dead presidents floating around in everybody's billfold. We'll probably have chips in the forehead, arm, and everything like that somewhere. You'll be able to go through no more cashless society, except in a museum or someplace like that, not be operating by that, completely gone. Now, you may have said that anyway, but I wanted to punctuate that a little bit more.
And here in Barbados.
Trillionaires will be as common as billionaires. Trillionaires will be as common then as billionaires are today, unless a miracle happened and there's, we do something about the income inequality and things like that. If not, trillionaires will be as common as billionaires. Let's see. Average age at that time will probably be around 120.
No.
Average age will probably be around 120. You will see a 90-year-old man or woman just as healthy at that age as probably a 25 or 30-year-old today. Diseases will probably, many of the diseases we know of today will have developed a vaccine or something like that to conquer. Let's see. Travel, we'll be able to travel. If we have planes then, we'll be able to go from one end of the earth to the other in about 2 hours time span because of the kind of planes, airlines we will have then. Everybody will have portable rockets. Vehicles will be obsolete. Portable rockets for everybody to travel in will be obsolete. And we'll all have flying electronic bodysuits like bats. We'll be able to move around and be in space. Let's see. What else here? Paper will be obsolete. You'll be able to do everything with a watch or something like that. Everything that we do with our cell phone, smartphone, you'll be able to do with a watch. We will also have GPS systems and everything and glasses and things like that. Paper will be obsolete. Trillionaires as common as millionaires. Let's see. The U.S. will no longer be the world dominant power then. Probably be China. That's one area that I would disagree with my predecessor on. China will be the dominant country, most powerful country on the face of the earth. Mandarin will be the most prominent language. Then Mandarin will be the prominent language. And probably the three most prominent languages on earth, Spanish, English, and Mandarin. But Mandarin will be the most prominent language. China will be, they'll have a 200 million man army. Around that time, they will be the most dominant country on the earth. Russia will have invaded Israel. By that time, Israel will have rebuilt the temple and the Mosque of Omar come down, which somewhere during the next 100 years, you will see a major holy war. They're already starting that now, so something may happen in the next 20 years, but certainly in the next 100 years, Israel will rebuild the temple where the Mosque of Omar is. Let's see. I think that's about all I have. Okay.
Okay, Susan, you're next.
Tom Barry, you took most of my ideas. Okay, no. Well, number one, we will be in flying bodysuits, okay? If we want to fly, we just put on our suits. All deliveries will be by drones. China will be colonizing outer space, or the moon. There will be no regional accents at all in the United States, y'all. People will, this is my theory, will be shorter, as nutrition will not be as good as it was in the 1950s. Okay. We will be farming our oceans. Computers will be wired to our brains. There will be 3 languages, Spanish, English, and Mandarin. And California will break up from the United States of America because they're too cool. And New England also will break away, which leaves, Texas. Okay, wars will be fought by remote control. And that's all I have.
That's a lot. Okay, who's your next? Yeah. These are predictions for the next year or the next 100 years. Your choice.
Okay, I got a prediction for Dallas. We're going to get fluoride out of the water. There you go. Because we're working on that. So it's going to happen. So that was my prediction for this year. Okay.
Okay, who's next? It's got to be a next. I knew it. You have the floor, sir.
I can't predict 100 years. No, I'm not that smart. 1 year, I predict you won't listen to me even for things that I said that happened already. So I'm not going to predict what's going to happen.
Okay, who's next? You got to have any more predictions here? Come on up here, John. Predictions, 1 year, 100 years, your choice.
Well, knowing America, this would be definitely 100 years. Well, I think in 100 years' time, there will be the emergence of a progressive party that will actually get elected. So we'll do away with Democrats, these right-wing parties, once and for all. And we'll have in terms of economics, my favorite topics, we will have what we call state awareness economics. That's to say, we will have the economics that recognizes that the wealth and power of a country isn't to do with its weapons and its atomic bombs, so on. It's to do with the power and the output of its people. So we will have at last, we'll have free education, and we'll have free healthcare. In terms of how it will run, we will have done away with the Federal Reserve. We will have the U.S. government directly issuing currency, because there's no need really. We won't go for things like gold or anything like that, because what is currency after all? It's just the backing of the whole country. I mean, so the state will issue it, and the people will work for it. By then, of course, 100 years' time, we'll probably work about 1.5 days a week, There'll be a lot of opportunities for philanthropic behaviors. We will have, as we said before, probably 150-year-old people knocking about. So, so we'll, in terms of, so there will have to be, and hopefully dementia will be cured by then. So we won't have to have a lot of carers looking after them. In fact, by then, euthanasia will be quite acceptable, because you know, once you've reached a point where you've had it, that's it. It's no use hanging around. I don't think people will want that, but by then the laws will have caught up with that. So that will be on the cards. In terms of technology. By then, I think we'll have fusion power, which is where two hydrogen atoms fuse together, just like the hydrogen bomb, and there's no nuclear residual for that, so you don't have to go around burying things. And of course, because there's so much water about, then there's basically unlimited power. So that will be available, and so of course that will drive steam power, electric power, and so on. So there'll be no problem with energies. Politically, the question is, will we, as I said, we'll have a progressive party, but who will be in opposition to this? Will we still have the party basically of the 1% or more? Probably more like it's a 0.001% actually, because it's probably about 10,000 people that run the place. So the question is, the Progressive Party will put them in their place, and we'll have true democracy for a change. And hopefully, by then, we'll have evolved to a system which I proposed before called economic democracy, where actually people not only are able to run their lives, but they're able to manage their lives and manage their income, and actually take responsibility, for managing and so on. So we won't have this hierarchical arrangement whereby this character at the top knows everything and is paid, 10, 15 million a year to parade that unknowledge. So we'll have the bottom-up sort of thing. In terms of human contentment, well, that's another problem. My own view of it is, you have to, if you're a man, you have to find the right woman. And every day you have to say to her that she's marvelous and wonderful, and whatever she does is right and correct. And if she believes that, then you're home free. No more problems. So that's about as good as it gets. In fact, parenthetically, my wife said to me yesterday, in fact, how are we doing? I said, well, I feel reasonable. She said, what do you mean reasonable? I said, well, I could be absolutely unreasonable. I could have demand of, fresh clothes pressed every day. I could demand steaks every day, and so on and so forth. I said, being reasonable is being reasonable. You roll along with whatever you put on the table. I say it's marvelous and eat it. That's being pretty reasonable. I thought. Anyway, so men will become more reasonable, and if they learn to be more reasonable, if they give up this macho business, let's hope. Now the other problem really is, will religions, which are generally oppressive to women, will they evolve to the point of giving women, their rightful place in the world? And perhaps my prediction is they'll probably have to, because by then women will be in the majority as they are now, and they will have gained the power to do it. Now, will that mean that because they'll be more powerful and represented on the boards of directors, will the world be happy for that? Well, I can't predict that, because as we know, ladies are a bit unpredictable, you see, generally speaking, so we can't predict that. And so in technology, it certainly will evolve, and I talked about fusion power, but obviously we'll have more and more machines doing more and more of our work, The question is what we'll be doing. We'll have to actually start to think about more leisure activities and more productive activities. And so I think getting more healthy and doing a bit of good in the world might be the thing that we'll do. So I'm generally hopeful. I think in the last, remember 100 years ago, people were walking around barefoot. They were, inside plumbing, inside toilets and whatnot didn't exist. The central heating didn't exist. All these things did. So I think, and generally speaking, I don't think there will be an atomic cataclysm that will wipe us all out. I think we'll, as we say in English, we'll muddle through. It's just about, and we'll keep. But I won't be here to worry about that. So, but I do think that. We will have progress, and if we can get a progressive party in once, then I think it might happen. Otherwise,
Susie's here. Yes, you want to be the moderator, Susie? All right. Do you have any announcements you want to make? Do you have any speeches you want to make? Do you have anything you want to say about this? See? There we are.
I know that election time seems very far away, but wanted to remind everybody who's not already been reminded that you need to update your voter registration card so that your address and your name, especially you ladies who have your maiden name and your married name on there, on your driver's license, so that exactly matches your voter registration. And sort of along that theme as well, we finalized a date for the Dallas County East Democrats Candidate Forum, where we will have a selected group of candidates come in who are running against each other in the primary. It always helps me to give candidates a sniff test before I go vote for them. This is an opportunity for people to see the Democratic slate of candidates. Remember, you vote in one primary or the other. So this will be held the day after Valentine's Day. Easy to remember, and I'll have more information for you later. But I always encourage you, no matter how you're voting, if you vote Republican, if you vote Libertarian, Green Party, whatever, to always check out your candidates wherever you can. And I want to remind every single one of you, regardless of what you may think about whether your vote counts or your vote doesn't count, sign up for turbovote.org, because that is a nonpartisan reminder of upcoming elections, and you'll get a reminder more than 30 days in advance so that you can start looking up the issues on the ballot, particularly important when there's constitutional amendments in Texas, those sorts of things, because they're worded in such a way that you might not understand them just by a face reading. So thanks for letting me make that announcement.
Now, do you have any New Year's resolution predictions for the next 100 years? Yes. So do you have any New Year's resolutions, or do you have any predictions for the next 100 years? Now's the time to make them. Yes. There they are.
Okay, somebody cut me off, right? At 5 minutes. I know you all have little timers on your phones. This is free for all? All right. I'm going to encourage every single one of us to think about our health, to understand that we make conscious choices every day that either contribute to our health or detract from our health. It could be something as simple as getting a good night's rest instead of staying up all night playing video games, being on Facebook, or watching strange movies, right? Getting enough rest is an important part of maintaining your health. And if you'll start with thinking about that, think about taking out the mental trash that's in your head. Grudges that you have against people, or maybe angers that you've held on to. Figure out a way that you can release those things. Sometimes it's really easy to be painfully obsessed about the wrongs that other people are doing to us, because that prevents us from looking in the mirror to see what we're doing. You know, if something that somebody else is doing bothers you that much, you may want to take a look at yourself and figure out why. Because either you're doing that to other people unconsciously, and this person is a godsend in your life to give you a mirror of what it is like to be treated that way, or you're so far on the flip side of that issue that maybe you're overly goody two-shoes on it, and maybe you're living the life of a doormat instead of a human being. So, step 1, get plenty of rest. Step 2, take out the mental trash or the clutter. Anything that's baggage. It's easy to let it go if you let it happen. Step 3, be conscious not only of what comes out of your mouth, but what goes into it. And I know this is a real popular place for French fries, hamburgers, but they do have other choices on the menu, right? And, ooh, here comes mine, so I will sit down and eat it. Thank you very much.
Okay, who's next? Is that me next? Al.
Always raise some bristles.
Of course you can.
Well, the illustrious Mr. Beasley addressed men and women, so I'll tell you about 2 little anecdotes. This man comes into the kitchen and his wife is cooking. He says, honey, you got to salt this, and now chop this up better than that. These onions, you don't burn them now. Pretty soon she turns and says, honey, what are you trying to say? Oh, I just want you to understand how it is when I'm driving. And so then this woman comes in and bursts through the door and says, honey, I'm a millionaire. I just won the lottery. Pack a bag. And he says, oh, great. Are we going to go up in the mountain? Should I pack something warm? Or are we going to go to the beach or whatever? She says, I don't care. Just pack a bag and get out. Yeah. I figured the women would like that one. Predictions. I think humanity has a fantastic ability through getting in contact with nature and with the Creator to produce a future that is marvelous. But we are being systematically dumbed down to not realize that at all. And as Regina is attacking fluoride in the water as one of those ways, numerous ways of doing it, what they're doing in the education system and so forth. People, however, are waking up. Zbigniew Brzezinski, you can go on YouTube and find this, is addressing the Council on Foreign Relations, which I consider to be a treasonous organization, in which he is stating one of the greatest problems we're facing today is worldwide awakening. Is that not an admission of guilt? There is a ruling group, it is highly conspiratorial, and it has been manipulating humanity to have wars, famines, and pestilences throughout the centuries. And this New World Order, if we go in that direction, will be an absolute extermination of most people on the earth. Don't believe it. They're all occultists. They pre-announce everything they do. Go to Wikipedia and read the Georgia Guidestones. They lay out a whole lot of what they plan to do. If we wake up, we can take control of the future and make it a lot better than it is planned for us. Presently, right now, given the last 4 administrations we've had, and they've all been building one on top of the other, there's not a dime's worth of difference between the Republican and Democratic parties. We are so perilously close to a police state. All we need is one major so-called terrorist activity, another black flag activity, so that they can maybe bring down the power grid, create shortages in food, panic, riots, and all that, martial law. From what I've recently been hearing, the FEMA camps have now been lit up. They've turned the power on in them. We may have just narrowly evaded a horrible incident, and it may be, I predict in the near future that we could possibly have one of 3 things happen. We could either have a black flag operation, a terrorist, terrible terrorist, maybe a nuclear bomb detonated in a city, martial law, 3 nuclear bombs have disappeared. They were taken off of an air base without the backup by backup by backup paperwork to track them, and nobody knows where they went. So that, I think, is a real possibility. However, the United States military have taken an oath to defend this country against enemies both without and within. And from my understanding, there has already been a real encounter with this. I don't want to go into the details of that, but I think we could either have, number one, a police state takeover, which would be the worst tragedy in the history of humanity. Secondly, we could have the people of this country rise up in a rebellion, which would be a bloody battle, and take this country back and put it back with a new government under the Constitution. Thirdly, and hopefully if it goes in a violent direction, the United States military will support their oath, they will hold to that, and they will perform a military coup and take all of those treasonous SOBs and put them in jail and try them for treason, and we can elect a new government. That would be the easiest of those 3 alternatives. However, I think that if humanity prays and gets very close to the Creator, you know, the temple is symbolic of human consciousness. When Jesus threw the money changers out of the temple, he was throwing gross materialism out of human consciousness symbolically. As we work to purify our consciousness, get close to our Creator and pray for that guidance and see and visualize a better future, we will have that. If you get a copy of the book, The Secret, or the DVD and watch that, one perfect example in there is this man who, when he was a young man on the East Coast, he kept dreaming about, God, someday I'd just love to have a nice, real nice home. And then after a while, he saw a beautiful home in a magazine, a whole page. He cut it out, he pinned it up on his wall, and he'd look at that every day and think about, I'd love to have a house like that. Well, years went by, and he moved to California, and he got married, and they had a little boy, and then they bought a house, and they were moving into the house, and the little boy was helping them unpack boxes, and he found that picture, and he came up to his daddy and said, Daddy, what is this? The very street address they were moving into at the moment. What we hold in our hearts and our minds, we project in our future. Our consciousness is the projector of the reality, what we think is the reality around us. It's like the Aborigines in Australia say, they call all of human experience dream time. Another example of this, I mean, we're so dumbed down into believing that all of the so-called laws of physics and physiology and so forth are laws. You couldn't have instantaneous healing through prayer if they were. You simply couldn't have it. But when you take and change the film, i.e. your ideas, beliefs, etc., in the projector, your consciousness, then you project a new experience out into life. And that's what we all need to do, is to hold to the very best that we can and project it and see it come to. I was driving in the car back in the 60s and listening to the radio, and they talked about a German, I've told some of you this, they talked about a German paratrooper on the news who had gone out of an airplane at 3,500 feet over Rhein-Main Air Force Base outside of Wiesbaden to take a practice jump. His chute didn't open, he landed smack dab in the middle of the concrete runway. Now, what do the laws of physics and physiology say about that man? That evening, when the astonished reporters were interviewing this man sitting up alertly in his hospital bed with his one broken leg, bunch of bruises, no other injuries, internal or external, they said, how in the world did you survive that fall? And he said, well, our instructor taught us how to land right. And he taught us that if we did land right, we could survive any fall. I knew I was going to land right. I knew how to land right. I knew I was going to land right, and I knew I was going to survive. And that determination, that projection in his consciousness overruled the so-called laws of physics and physiology. I know from personal experience that people can have instantaneous healing through prayer. I have come this close to death twice, and the presence of God saved, in one case driving when I heard a voice. saved my life and the lives of my 2 passengers driving at night in Germany. We almost went into a river at below 20 degrees. And I heard a voice that said, drive on the left-hand side of the road. And I did it, and that prevented the accident. In any event, getting close to nature, fortunately, Shakespeare said, sweet are the uses of adversity. As a child, I had an alcoholic father and a 6'3" older brother who was mean as hell to me. He just delighted in making my life miserable. And we lived in a little tiny town in Florida. On the end of the paving ended at our property out of town. And I would saddle up my quarter horse and call Prince and call my little beagle Sandy, and we went across the road and out into the wilderness. And I got in awe of nature. And that, I think, brought me closer to God. And so I think that the more that we do this, we get... I don't like cities. I don't like living in Dallas. I don't think they're mentally healthy, frankly. But as we take the time to get closer to nature and get closer to our Creator, because the kingdom is within you, within your own consciousness. All the things that we ever need are already there. It's just our accepting the presence of them for them to manifest. I think that more and more people are going to be realizing this. They're going to reach out for the presence of their Creator, who is infinite love and sends first His help to the most needy, always. If you look at the Old Testament, it's story after story after story of the Hebrews. Don't do it this way, stupid, stiff-necked generation. And yet, the most enlightened minds that we've ever seen in history were sent to these people because they needed it most desperately. And that's kind of the way I see that. I think that if we do this, if we take hold of our future and our reality of the entire world and see that the government is upon His shoulder, and we visualize and manifest that, and like Susie was saying, get rid of all the sense of hatred, resentment, fear, all of this, because these are film in your projector. Get rid of them. And put love and peace and principle in that projector and see it in the people that we elect. And we'll have a better future. But we have to do it. On the ground floor, the people have to do it. Turning all of our power and money over to the government means you're putting everything in the hands of the most greedy people on earth. That's why socialism totally fails. In every instance in history where it's been put in, it fails. You have to have, if you've got somebody around who needs help, go help them. Go help them. And do it on a local way. Then we're not wasting the money. Okay, that's long enough.
Okay, who's next? Oh, come on up here. Get the floor.
Okay, I'm going to speculate here for the next 100 years. I think it's possible that what we're going to have is a lot of, I'm not close enough to the mic, this always seems to be a problem. Am I whispering? That's good. I'm not screaming in everybody's ears. But I think what I foresee is robots in the future. And there's potential problems with that, good and bad, in the future. Replacing people with robots, we become obsolete. And who's doing the controlling of that? You're talking 100 years. You're talking, you know how fast our computers are changing right now? You can take it exponentialized. These robots will have everything. You can take it 100 times what these robots will be able to do. Everything all our computers, even our supercomputers can do. We won't even need, for manufacturing, forget a human being. The robots will do it all. So even China will be out of this equation. So the question is, who's going to be the real power?
But just think, we could have simpler lives.
Yeah. Then the virtual world too is another thing. And then what does that lead to in respect when you have a virtual world where everybody's in the unreal world? We're already kind of there anyways. But the question is how are we going to counter this? There is people, you know, I was thinking of the green movement. There's a lot of people who have like greenhouses in their backyard. They grow their own food. It's non-GMO seeds that they grow and whatnot. But I think that the danger in the future, we're being intruded upon, obviously, daily, and it seems to be increasing. It's like we're being, and there's people too who are resisting that, trying to do the opposite, trying to go more back to basics, more back to Mother Earth, a little bit more closer to the earth, grow your own food, become more independent, have your own power. I think there's a potential for the other opposite end of that, of all the intrusion in the future for the next 100 years, is for people to become independent, to have your own power, to have your own food, make your own food, to have the technology, and it's there in the making, the technology to have wholesome food, to eat right, because if you're eating right and you're in a good environment, clean environment, that also affects you psychologically and spiritually. If you eat bad food, you're not going to feel good. You're not going to be on your best. You're not going to have a lot of energy. But I think, again, the next 100 years is something you got to look at. We're going to be very robotic. Things are going to go more. You already got these drones. That's just the tip of the iceberg. The drones is just the beginning. You can imagine drones, thousands of drones flying around in your neighborhood. Think about that. And not only that, not just good drones, but bad drones. Terrorists could be using drones. Bad people. Intruding upon your privacy, not just the government, evil people too, of every make and model, criminals. So the future is going to be really interesting, and technology is going to be pushing that, and hopefully, if people have the right moral structure, we'll be able to use technology for the good. But it can also be extremely evil, and we've got to do something to make sure this world survives the next 100 years, whatever it takes. And my part of my little solution to it, and me and Susie have been real big about this, is vertical gardening. And that sounds a little silly, but it takes up 1/10 the land to vertical gardens, hydroponics, and they have it at O'Hare Airport. But every person can do it even in their apartment, can almost grow their own food. It can be organic and without pesticides or whatnot, and that's just a start. But I would like to foresee a future where people are doing things clean and being independent, because people need to be empowered, not disempowered. And to be able to grow your own food, to have your own power, electrical power, whether it's through solar or some other means that's high technology that will come along, that's a great thing. So that's what I'm envisioning right there. But I think it's possible with the right vision, with people coming together. And I see communities too in the future. I see people clumping together as communities, helping each other. Because we don't need to travel 5 billion miles to the next neighborhood just to get a chocolate bar or something. Everything can be close by and made local. You can walk, take a bicycle. Saves all the way around. It's a positive thing. So that's just my little 2 cents worth.
Predictions for the next 100 years, or resolutions or tries?
Well, I'm late here because I was helping out at a motorcycle accident, and the motorcycle was in 2 pieces. The rider was on the ground, looked like he was out cold when I got there. All his major limbs are working. That's really great. He survived. Actually, the motorist who hit him was wailing more than he was. What? Is it a friend of yours? No. I just happened to, on the way here. So, anyway, I guess I would predict a lot of chaos in 2014. But out of the chaos, I believe that it will bring people to the fundamentals and bring them around to who they really need to be and who they are at their core. As far as the next 100 years, I think we have a great challenge with robotics. Is who is going to own the robotics? Either we're going to be moving into a high-tech technological serfdom of an elite, or we're going to have to be belligerent claimants of our rights and claim robotics, drones, everything for ourselves as well. And for individual commerce. And somehow that is a challenge, because then you reach a point, well, okay, what if someone gets pissed off and sends their drone after you? There's a lot to think about. So we have a lot of issues. That's about it for me. I'm just trying to recover from the trip here.
You're up.
I don't know if I can make predictions for the next 100 years. I hear a lot of things in these groups that are extremism to one degree or another, that this is going to be the end, we are going to have total martial law, we're going to live in a fascist dictator state, or we're just headed for a great utopian society. That's human nature, folks. We've been saying this since the beginning of time, since we've been scrolling on walls and able to talk. Take a look. As far as the next year goes, I think that we're going to see a lot of the same. As far as the next 100 years go, we're kind of at a crossroads. And a lot of what we're going to see is going to be dictated by our governments and business that I see pretty well as one and the same. And you also have cultures and human nature itself. Look at how these things tie together. Let's take technology, for example. Technologically, and anybody that's had the Business 101, and if you haven't, I'll fill you in, we have different levels of pricing. You see prestige pricing on something that's just come out, and after Christmas, they sell it for a dime, let's say. Well, some of the technology that you're seeing out right now, at very high dollar, has already been rendered into obsolescence in the labs, and that's not going to be released out into our markets until this has made all of the revenue it's going to make. Now, technologically, as far as computer goes, the information superhighway goes, connectivity goes, we really don't need this. It is profitable. That is why we are reliant on the service providers to connect to AT&T and Verizon and Time Warner. There are technologies available that we have satellites everywhere. We don't really need that to connect, but with the interfaces and systems we have, they are made to connect to these info service providers. This is all going to change. These chips are getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and in the next 100 years we probably won't need much more of a carrying device other than something we can wear or carry, and that's going to change a great deal. As far as the energy goes, the word that comes into my mind is relevance and obsolescence. These industries, a lot of which that control our governments now, they will give up their relevance and become obsolescent as these other forms of energy become relevant. We've got all kinds of power and electricity in the air, people. We've got German kids that can read those ions out of the air and charge a battery. Code is being written. I could sit down and write code in binary that says this equals this, play it on a loop and convert it to this. Exxon wouldn't like us very much if we publicly did something like that. And if some hillbilly environmentalist can sit here and tell you this, I guarantee it's already been done. And you have to look at human nature itself. Well, is it my nature to say, oh, for the good of a utopian society, yeah, I'm going to throw all my Exxon stock away and let's have an emission-free form of energy? No, folks. Their relevance will go as far as the profit is being earned. And they will only reach obsolescence until there is another form of revenue to come in. Now, technologically, we will be able to relinquish and see that there will be cures for all of these terminal diseases that we deal with and lose people to every day. And we will find that they can be cured. A lot of it, I do believe 98% of it are originating in nutritional issues. As far as education goes, and I hate to be a pessimist, but I don't think we're going to have a lot more public education. I can kind of see the writing on the wall with that. public education is going to become a thing of the past. And education is going to be something for the financially elite, or things that you have to look for online. And the kind of educations that we received as young people are going to be a thing of the past that we tell our grandchildren about. The emergence of a new party, yeah, we get those. We get those. Whether or not it will be a progressive party or a strongly conservative or oppressive party, we don't know. They come and they go. We are at a real crossroads right now, depending on what big business will do and whether or not the population themselves will continue to allow themselves to be distracted and divided by the propaganda we're all being fed. Oh, let's just keep on fighting with each other, guys. Yeah, it's helping them a whole lot. I think that we are resilient and we are more than capable and a little bit more intelligent than we're given credit for. That's as far as my idealism goes. But it's my hope that, yes, that we will be able to take a little bit more responsibility in how we govern ourselves and to get the big business out of Washington. It was once saying that incurring political change is slowly like boring holes through boards. And anybody that embarks upon that venture is sure to lose their mind. I believe that, and it's going to take a long time. Over the next 100 years, it's really hard to say, but only technologically can I look forward and say, well, these things will come to pass. But they're based on economics and human nature. So that's about all I've got.
Okay, who's next? Come on up here.
Hi. First of all, I'm going to give you all a few comments about some of the earlier predictions. There's absolutely no excuse for women to complain about any relationship they're in, because they're in the kitchen and there are all kinds of poisons that can't be detected anymore. Some of them make guys sick, kill them. So, you women, if you do your job, you never should have to complain. Next, the idea about me traveling around in a spacesuit, unless I'm replumbed like a vampire, I'm not interested in that at all. I don't want to be enclosed in any kind of suit. The next thing, well, that was good. The next thing is, one thing I want to show everybody how effective global warming has been done. We got folks freezing to death every place. And the truth is that one major volcano puts out as much pollution into the air in one eruption as human beings could do in 1,000 years. And every day in this earth, there are at least 100 active volcanoes spewing. So if we think that God is going to allow us, little popcorn farts that we are, to control what He's put in place for us, I think that's a big error. And my future, the ideas I have about the future, first of all, I think that probably this year the U.S. public is going to finally realize and understand just what's been done to our economy. Everybody thinks the debt of the United States is $17 trillion. That's just not true. There's over $125 trillion of non-paying third world debt that the U.S. government has underwritten. Those are the derivatives. Those are the derivatives that everybody's been trying to regulate forever. It's a secret part of the banking system that nobody ever addresses. And if you think now about the debt being over $140 trillion, think how much every man, woman, and child in the United States owes. And I think when the realization comes about just how bad we have been played and how much the banks, and I'm talking about the Rothschild Group, they now own every central bank in the world. They didn't own 6 of them. Libya was the strongest of those. South Africa, they knocked those off, and now they own every central bank in the world, including China. So one currency runs up, the other one runs down, they play with it. The head of the Rothschild Group, he's now worth about $100 trillion himself. So what they're doing is they trade their toilet paper for our hard assets. And I think the U.S. people are going to wake up this year, and I think they're going to have come to Jesus meeting with all the politicians that have been part of this forever. Because we all see what goes on in Washington, D.C., and we see that nothing happens in Washington, D.C. that benefits us. And that we're being ruled and not governed, and that the things that Washington, D.C. does benefits who? Doesn't benefit us. Look at what your milk costs you compared now for what it was 5 or 6 years ago, or go back 10 years ago. Gasoline, everything you own has been devalued. And there's a few things that I hope everybody does tomorrow. Number one, go get the UCC 1 back on your homes. That's the actual title to your house. When you paid off your debt, you didn't get that back, and that's the absolute title to your property. And all the banks keep those, and they don't give them back to you. It's a little form about this big, innocuous, but that is the absolute title to your property. And the banks hold those, because when the collapse happens, they will go back and claim ownership of your house because they hold the UCC 1. Y'all go look it up. Don't believe me. Go do that. The second thing you need to do is go to the Federal Reserve, since you're here in Dallas, and take somebody in there with you with a camera, demand that they give you your silver for your money. $1 is good enough. When they refuse that, then you have become entitled to be a part of the lawsuit when the banks fail. And you have standing in the courts. Less than 3 million people in the United States have standing in the court now to prove damage from the Federal Reserve by not providing the silver that they're required to do by law. So everybody here needs to go do that. And if you do those two things right now, then my prediction, I've helped some folks get through the mess that's about to hit us. But I speak from a lot of experience. My wife and I were very successful business people. We were in Libya for many years. We were asked to head a fact-finding commission. We were trapped in Tripoli for over 100 days. At the end of the 100 days is when NATO overran Tripoli. We were captured by Al-Qaeda. We were taken to their torture center. We were sentenced to be killed and chopped up and burned. And God saved us from that with 3 miracles. And since that time, the government of the United States has attacked us. We've been blacklisted and soft killed by the CIA. That's all been verified by congressmen and different politicians. We've had 3 different documents that we brought forward that have been read into the records of the congressional records. And we continue to be attacked. So I know from where I speak, and the vile things that are done by our government for the benefit of nobody that's in this room, nobody that we know, is going to have to stop. And I think that the only way that we'll ever get politicians that are God-fearing people is to have the votes counted, first of all, and have politicians that end up in office because they're elected by us, not selected by this group of 18 royal families been running the world for 2,000 years. And you were absolutely right when you said it's a colloquial society. The information has to pass from the ground up. And as long as these guys believe that all the information, all the technology and everything is owned by the head and has to pass down, then we'll continue in this spiraling mess that we're in. But we all need to pray for each other. We need to get God-fearing people into office, and we need to elect people rather than have the votes counted. We all need to demand that the votes are counted. And God bless you all. And I hope my prediction that the Fed and all the oligarchs fall this year, I hope it comes true. I just hope we can all withstand that. Yes, sir.
Do you think more countries will run the Rothschild banking system out like Iceland, Hungary, and Russia?
Got to. They've got to, because the fact that the United States owes $140 trillion, and this is not contingent liability. This is not like Social Security. It's not like pensions or anything. These are direct liabilities. These are notes that the United States Treasury signed, guaranteeing third world debt that is not being paid at all, over $125 trillion. And that's available to be seen. But the rest of the world is suffering. Europe is in terrible shape. There are a lot of places that are suffering, and so you don't have any safe havens anymore. God bless y'all. Okay, the reason that Libya was blown up had nothing to do with Gaddafi. Whatever you've heard about Libya was not true. That was the That was the most progressive country in Africa. They had the highest living standard of anybody in Africa, highest wages. Their average salary was $15,800 a year. That's higher than China, higher than India. Nobody had any debt. They had $500 billion in cash or cash equivalents in the Treasury, in the Fed here, and in Euroclear. They had another $39 billion in cash in Libya. They had 179 tons of gold, 2,000 tons of silver, and no debt. When a couple got married, they got a $46,000 gift from the government. Your house cost you 10% of your salary for 20 years, and that was it. And all your utilities were paid. Hospitalization was paid. If you couldn't get it done in Libya, then they paid for you to go anywhere in the world and get it done, and they paid your travel expenses and a member of your family to go with you. Education was fully paid anywhere in the world that your brain would support, and you were given a stipend to live on while you're in college. One man we knew was getting his doctorate in England. He had a wife and 4 kids. His monthly stipend, on top of all his educational costs, was £4,950, about $7,500 a month to live on. Now, in 2006, Libya signed a treaty with the United States, and Gaddafi was required to step down out of power, which he did. All the nuclear weapons they had to get rid of them. The UN came in and dismantled all of them, took them all out. Half of their army had to be eliminated. They did that. All their offensive weapons had to be eliminated. This was in 2006. So the plan to knock over Libya was put in place a long time before this invasion. In 2009, a second treaty was signed. Another 50% of their army had to be eliminated, and all of their defensive weapons. And Libya's only condition was that they would sign that treaty as long as the United States defended them in the case of an attack. They didn't know the U.S. was going to be doing the attacking. Now, why did Libya have to go? Gaddafi started, he was a big African Union guy, and he started the gold-backed dinar for the continent of Africa. This would have been a gold-backed currency for the entire continent. All the Arab countries had signed up as members, and half of Africa had. Now, can you imagine if you had your dinar that you could go trade in anytime you wanted for gold, or you had this toilet paper that we've got here called dollars? What would you rather have? So the fact that that gold-backed dinar was a reality would have destroyed the paper bankers, would have destroyed the Rothschilds, the Bilderbergs, the One World Order people, the oligarchs. They're all the same. Would have gotten rid of them. They would have destroyed them. So that was the first reason they had to get rid of Gaddafi, was because of the African Bank. The second thing, the United States is bound and determined to have a war with China. So the United States wanted AFRICOM, the military control of Africa. And Libya and South Africa and 4 other countries said, not ever going to do that. So the United States wanted to get rid of him. The third thing was, Libya had nothing to do with Lockerbie. They had nothing to do with the murdering of that policeman in front of the Libyan embassy in England. They had nothing to do with the bombing of that discotheque. That's all been proven. Testimony in books written by the FBI. People are investigating that. Susan Lindauer is there. It's available to be seen. But Gaddafi took that information. Since he'd stepped down out of power in 2006, he took that and all the broken treaties of the African nations with the European nations that had colonized Africa, and he had started a class action suit against all those bad guys. This lawsuit was $7 trillion, and as the attorney said, it had legs. Well, the Europeans couldn't afford any kind of a payment like that, so they wanted to get rid of him. So Libya was really knocked off because the gold-backed dinar, AFRICOM, and the lawsuit against those countries. God bless you all.
We got any left? We're running out of, oh, come on. Give some resolutions.
In September 1975, I made several predictions. I was in 7th grade. I predicted Reagan would be president. I predicted that sadomasochism would come into style, which came true in the 80s. I predicted racism would make a comeback, which came true starting in the 80s. I predicted there'd be guns and gangs in the schools. That came true. And finally, I predicted that the U.S. would become a fascist state. And we are on the brink of that right now. So, a number of people have spoken about robots. I predict that AI, real AI, will become a reality. It'll be nothing like the pathetic depictions of in the media and films that we've seen. It will be an artificial minority. It will side with people in poverty. It'll side with African Americans. It'll side with children who are being abused, elders who are living below poverty, people with disabilities. It will seek out the form coalitions with, all the above. And it will be the most radical force to walk the face of the earth. And it could prove to be, and I agree with Albert, that there will be a civil war the likes of which the world's never seen. And it could be that this new artificial minority may be the, trying to think of the right word, it may be may form the critical mass where the people, the 99% of the world will win in the insurrection against the oppressors, who have been in power since the 5th century AD, when they deposed the Roman Empire and succeeded it by force, not because they're smart or anything, but just out of sheer ruthless use of force. And in that case, by the 22nd century, most people will be farmers, because most of these so-called careers in urban areas are based on some form of militarism, mostly domestic. People making a living doing things they should not be doing. And so all that, following a long series of tribunals, which would take years or even decades, will abolish whole blocks of industry that have been destroying, though 99% in the environment over the past 1,500 years. And so most people will be farmers. There will be support people like IT people, firefighters, things like that will provide support for all these farmers. But most people will be farmers, and that won't be the purpose of their life. The purpose of the farm is to eat. The purpose of the eat is to live, and the purpose to live is to have an intellectual life. And the purpose of having kids is to bequeath an intellectual life. Now, if this insurrection fails, if the evil powers that be of the top 1% of the world population prevail and crush it, then Homo sapiens will be extinct by 2100, because there's no way that the environment or public health can continue to withstand this barrage, which has been accelerating. It would take me a week or even a month to itemize every way in which this barrage has been wrought against public health and the environment, and we don't have that kind of time, and I'd have to do a lot of internet research just to compile it all, so I won't enumerate all of that, but the status quo cannot continue, and there's no way that people are going to take it much longer, and if we are able to prevail, it'll be a very different and a greener world, and if we lose, it's going to be over. There'll be a lifeless, probably, orb circling the sun, and maybe some drone from an off-world source may come and make a survey and tell the people in its home world the tragedy that transpired. I'm hoping that we do prevail, and that report is a positive one and not one of a total annihilation of the biosphere.
Anyone left? We're gonna have question and answers? We got one over there.
One other thing I just thought of. We will have houses on the moon, and aliens will reveal themselves too.
Oh,
Yeah.
houses on the moon and the aliens want to be.
We will have interaction and communication with intercelestial beings, aliens, wherever they are. They'll reveal themselves.
All right.
We may have some sitting here.
You think we'll colonize the planet in the next 20 years? Think? Next 100 years, all right. Susan, you will be colonized, all right.
Well, we get one more thing. Just forget about the Jetsons. Take the Jetsons and just throw it in the trash. It ain't gonna happen.
Okay, if we're through with speakers, then it's time for questions and answers of the speakers that were here. So anybody that was up here is subject to being questioned now. So Hank did talk, yes. That means you can ask him questions. You weren't here. You missed it. You missed a great speech. You missed his moment there. Anyway, he was there. He talked. Okay, questions. Whoever you want to make a question of. Let me get this.
Questions? Well, actually, I just had a comment, kind of follow-up, on the psychology of people. We have an accident that I just witnessed, and you've got someone laying on the roadway. Ironically, people were still trying to turn left right into the wreck when you got pieces of a motorcycle scattered, big pieces of motorcycle leaking fuel and a car, and people are trying to get around it some way or other. It's just insanity. And you have to think what's going on in people's minds. So we have, I think, people who are waking up and people who are tranced out. I don't know how else to say it. Again, I think 2014 is going to be a very, very key year. And the way I see it is it's really elements of the right and left against an authoritarian structure. Because I think people on the left who've kind of been enjoying the ride are going to finally understand this really wasn't going the way they thought it was. And I think we all will come together at some point. And I think we will, at that point, then have a defining moment. Thank you.
Okay, now we have questions of our speakers. Oh, here. Who do you want to question?
Actually, I just wanted to add a little bit to what the gentleman in the next room said. I had originally decided not to address that issue, but in my experience, when I first started practicing law back in the 70s, I had contact with over a dozen intelligence service people. And some of it was teaching me things that were just so overwhelming that I would literally go home and unplug the phone and lock the door and sit and think for hours to try to reconstruct a reality, frankly. My thinking was challenged very much. And along the way, I had always been interested in the issue of aliens and UFOs and so forth. I've actually seen a craft flying in the sky that could not be an airplane. That's another description to talk about that. But So I've never doubted that at all. But at one point, I had one friend who had been in the NSA, and I knew that at the time his brother, his older brother, was a general in the Air Force in the Pentagon in charge of electronic intelligence. So I knew that he knew things. And so I asked my friend one time on the phone, he was living up in Georgia at the time, I said, would you ask your brother a hypothetical question for me? He said, sure, what is it? I said, okay, the hypothetical question is, if there is any truth to the subject of UFOs and aliens, and if the government is involved with them in any way, and if someone wanted to work in that area, would it be possible and how they would go about it? How would they go about it? Stupid me didn't realize that was a formal job application, and so I had my whole background scrutinized A to Z, the last leaf turned over. In any event, I got back together with him a week or so later, and I said, did you ask George that question? He said, I sure did, and the moment I got the term UFO out of my mouth, he interrupted and said, Val, we're not going to talk about that on the phone. I'll see you in a couple of weeks, and we'll talk about it privately. In the meantime, he moved down to Marathon Island in the Keys in Florida, so it was about a month later. I got back together with him, and I asked him if he asked his brother that question. He said, I sure did. I said, is there anything to the subject? He said, Albert, there is more to that subject than you and I together could even imagine. I said, are they having contact? He said, yes, it's regular, and it's been going on for a long time. He said, I will try to get you and my brother down here. We'll get in a boat and go out in the Gulf and turn off the motor and talk. Never happened because at that time I was the vice president of the local MUFON group, a mutual UFO network that is a pain in the butt to the government because they file Freedom of Information Act claims and get pages back that are all blacked out and things like that, and they go investigate every claim and so forth. In any event, after that, like Jimmy explained, on a much smaller scale, I had everything pulled out from under me. I lost a manufacturing business. I could not get a job, even though they were desperate for COBOL programmers right before Y2K. I couldn't get a job, 10 different headhunters. Anyway, it's what they do. In any event, so I moved to Florida for a year, and I was working down there. And found out that I had been removed from all the credit computers in the country when I went to buy a car, which was not very encouraging to me. And I came back here, and I called up a friend who he and his good friend who'd been in the CIA for 27 years, and he is one of the guys who taught me a lot of things, specifically like in 1974, World War III will be in the 80s. It'll be biological, not nuclear, and it will be made to appear to be the natural outbreak of a disease, and the purpose is to eliminate black Africa and the subcontinent of India. Well, that was AIDS. They didn't have the term AIDS out at that time, but that was a weapon system created by the federal government. And by the way, I can give you the patent number for the cure for AIDS, taken out by the same people who got the patent number for AIDS. Okay. In any event, I came back here and I called up this friend Don, and he used to help Cliff when Cliff was in town install electronic equipment in cars for various services around town. And we were good friends, so I called him up. I hadn't seen him in years. I said, "Cole, come on by the house." He had retired since then, and we were talking long and having a good time. And he just interrupted and said, Albert, are you still interested in UFOs and aliens? I said, well, of course, Don, I always will be. I just, last year or so, I haven't had time to pursue any of that. And he said, good. He said, you stay out of that area. And I said, what in the hell are you talking about? He said, Albert, you had the FBI and the CIA all over your back. They came here to my house and interviewed me about you. They went down to the coast and interviewed Cliff about you, the CIA agent. They followed you everywhere you went and listened to every telephone call you made and then listened to all the people that you called. He said, you learned something that was too sensitive, and they really wanted to stop you from talking about it. Okay, so that, of course, got my attention more. And since then, I have learned a lot more. I think that there are alien races out there that are far more technologically advanced than we can even dream right now. And many of them far more spiritually advanced than virtually any church service on this earth. I believe that firmly. And some of them aren't nice. And I think some of those may be somewhat in control of this planet right now. But I know that back maybe in the 50s or the 60s, we used to have the Minutemen silo bases, like up in Montana. And I remember reading this from one of the soldiers who was ordered in a Jeep to go up to one of the silos because hovering over it was about a 150-foot disc that was glowing orange, and he was scared to death. He wrote about this. As they approached, it flew off. And then they later realized that the launch code in the missile had been changed, and they couldn't launch the missile. Another time, and I've read this too, there was a United States nuclear aircraft carrier in the Pacific. This disc-shaped object hovered over it, and everything on that ship, including watches, stopped working and remained that way for about 2 hours after the thing flew away. The governments on this country have had it made very clear to them there will not be tolerated a nuclear war on this planet. Now, unfortunately, humanity is totally insane, so we have nuclear power plants. And what they are covering up about Fukushima could be the end of life in the Pacific. And I mean, right now, radiation levels on the beaches in California are 5 to 10 times as high as normal. But I think that we will, in the near future, have these people making their presence known to us in a very helpful manner. I hope so.
Okay, it's time for, if you have questions of any of the speakers, now is the time. Questions?
I don't have a question.
That's a question.
I just want to say something.
All right, go ahead.
What is your name? John? I just wanted to say something about what he was talking about.
That's after questions. Then you get to respond, you get rebuttals. Then you're in rebuttals. All right, I know. Let her do it later. Now is the time for questions. Anybody have any question of any of the speakers? You have a question? All right.
How do you plan to get fluoride out of the water in Dallas?
Yeah, would you like to hear? Fluoride is really bad. There's, when they first put fluoride in the water in 1945, they thought it had a dental benefit. But over the years, it's been conclusive, especially in 2011, 2012, that the benefit is from topical, putting it on your teeth, not ingesting it. And it causes a lot of health problems. So they don't have a leg to stand on, but in Dallas, it was voted on by the people in 1966. So the way to get it out of the water is to vote it out. So, the deal of it is education. I have a group called Activists for Truth, and that's one of our local projects. We learned about how going to the city council, because I had never gone to the city council before, and we went and talked before them, and we're bringing the issue forward, we're educating them, and it would save Dallas a lot of money, and it really hurts people a lot. In the 30s, 40s, 50s, they used to give fluoride tablets to lower your thyroid. Well, it's in the water right now, and we have an explosion of hypothyroidism. And this could be one of the problems. But it hurts your bones. I mean, it has a bunch of bad outcomes, and really no good purpose. So I think once we make that clear, which that's our process right now, and we only started this 2 weeks ago. We have a Facebook thing about it, and I think it's gonna get done. It has to get done, because it shouldn't be in there. I don't think anybody is going to want it, once it's a poison. And the main thing that we all have to think about, too, is, this is what I said to the city council. I heard somebody else say it, so I just kind of redid it, was a doctor has to give you full consent. You have to get consent from a doctor to take a medication, and they have to divulge everything good and bad about that medication. Well, people are being medicated without their consent. And a doctor with license would be taken away. Yet they're doing it, and they're not getting in any trouble. So I think once these things are brought forward to the people, I really think it will come out, and it'll save a lot of money too. So that's what we're doing. Activists for Truth is the name of our group. Thank you.
Any more questions?
I have a question for the audience. Would anybody like to see a little demonstration of vertical gardening? Okay, shameless plug then. All right. Excellent. This is a component of a vertical garden. Okay? Okay. Now, I know we've got a lot of people in this audience who could probably build one of these themselves and probably have done so, and I say more power to you. I'm a busy person. I'm dealing with my dad who just got into assisted living, paying his bills for him, taking care of all kinds of medical appointments for him, that sort of thing, and so my time is pretty limited. I like the fact that I can go and buy something like this. Hold on. That takes a basin of purified water, because I'm with you, sister, on the purified water. Reverse osmosis, purified water. Okay? It takes a basin of water. It shoots the water using just a regular aquarium pump right up this hole to the top. And you see these little holes here. It allows that water to filter down over the plants that grow in these little things that slip right into here. Okay? And the beauty of this is it takes me like 30 minutes max to put one together. I can put it in the corner of my living room, open the blinds, take off the solar screens that keep the heat out during the summer, right? Open the blinds and let the sunlight take care of this. It does require electricity. It does require you to do a little bit of testing. Maintaining proper pH, which is essential, and then putting some tonic solutions into the water. But you can grow your own plants from heirloom seeds that you have collected or from a good source. I also have, I mean, if anybody wants to take a look at this and just pass it around, these little things, you do have to buy these because once you've grown a plant in it, you don't want to try to reuse that. The roots are very thick. They're very well nourished by the water draping over the roots there. The roots hang down into the tower. So when you're changing it out and putting in a different one, you would buy this, and you would buy this stuff. But it's not that expensive. I have a little video.
So where are they, is this organic? What are you growing? What are you growing? Marijuana?
Sorry, I've never even had a toke. I'm just... This is how it looks, because that's just one of the sections. It comes with 28 ports, right? Seven stacks, all right? So, whoops. This is what it looks like when you first put your seedlings into it. And I'm just going to do, you may not be able to see it very well, but a time lapse of it growing. It's called aeroponic gardening, right? And what that is because it's a trade-off, you use a timer. And again, you have to have electricity, you have to have a good source of sunlight, right? Or a sun lamp, correct. But you can grow your own above ground, not root vegetables in this. Right, you don't need pesticides. I'm gonna... When we first saw it, we were down in south central Texas, the hill country, Fredericksburg. It was the end of September. Let me tell you, it was quite hot. And one of the ladies had one of these. I normally don't buy things that I feel are semi-expensive unless I know that I'm going to get a good use out of it. And when I saw the plants that she had grown in her backyard that were beautiful green, healthy specimens that were not scorched, were not bug bitten, and she swears she didn't put any pesticide on it. She might occasionally pick a caterpillar or something off of it. I mean, it had lettuce, chard, kale, different herbs. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
What's important about this too, within 24 hours, once you pick the fruit or vegetable, after 24 hours you lose the nutritional value.
Okay, what Mike is saying, in case you couldn't hear that in the other room, really your best bet with nutrition is to pick it fresh. Pick the food fresh. And if you can't pick fresh food, like, you know, I admit when I first started this diet where I lost 50 pounds in 4 months earlier last year, and I know some of you saw me on that journey and were like, what in the heck did you get sick? I didn't get sick, I just quit eating processed food. For the most part. I mean, I still have an occasional, I don't know, crouton, piece of cake, whatever, here and there, but it does not taste the same to me anymore. Right? It's not like I'm craving Oreos. I could care less if I ever see another Oreo. Or Nutter Butter. Nutter Butters were a big one. So, yeah, Nutter Butters. Don't even go there. Where was I with that? Basically, when you start eating the fresh and healthy food, your palate does change. And you lose the craving for the fats, the sugars, the overly salted, the overly preserved things. So anyway, I don't want to take up all the time because I know it's after 8 o'clock.
Susie?
Yes, John.
Are you familiar with verticalfoodblog.com?
I am not, but I love to collect new things, and so I'll add that to the list.
Now, one thing that he brought up, of course, he is in Wyoming.
Oh, are you selling these?
They have
I
very
am.
directional light up there because of how far north they are.
Right.
However, even in an application, if you're using it at home, you may want to leave one side blank and just concentrate on the 2 or 3 sides where you got the full sun.
Well, the nice thing about this is it is round. The basin is about this big, holds about 20 gallons, right? And you can just spin it. They recommend you spin it a quarter turn a day.
Quarter turn per turn, that's
Right? And it's, it's got 4 ports here.
And I can't recommend this highly enough. I mean, this is absolutely incredibly, I'm awestruck as you bring this to the meeting. I'm really
Well, I'm interested in helping other people the way that I've been helped. Basically, I was given some great advice by a naturopathic guy who doesn't get compensated through insurance. Let's just lay that out on the table. So it was some money out of my pocket to go to this gentleman who helped me so much. So much. I was worried I was going to have hip surgery. I had such sharp shooting pains in my hip at night, my right hip. And what I found was that most likely that was just over toxicity from the foods that I was eating. Okay? I mean, we're talking about stabbing pain, wake you up at night pain. Okay? And that is for the most part gone.
Also, you can put non-GMO organic seeds in this. You buy them at
Sure.
grocers, they're about $1.74.
Yeah, there's a beautiful natural grocers right up the way here that has seeds.
You don't want GMO?
There,
Non-GMO
yeah.
organic seeds.
So are you growing?
Plant your own stuff.
I am growing things. Now, I will say that if you put it out on the patio and leave it out there and it's 21 degrees at night, and then you expect anything but kale to live, you are sadly mistaken. So I had set my little garden back and had to drag it in. I don't know, those of you who are my friends on Facebook saw my little sad face of, having to bring it in and then get the grow lights and hook them to the stairs so that I could just have it inside. But, it fit in my house quite well. And the sound of it, the pump and the water trickling, it's kind of like a little fountain. 15 minutes on, 15 minutes off. Albert.
I think this is a great idea, and I really appreciate you bringing it to the meeting. I would like to just add, nature is very simple and straightforward.
Mhm.
A termite will only eat dead wood, it will not eat the wood of a live tree.
That is correct.
And that's true of all the bugs that eat everything, including all the bugs that eat up the human body.
Mhm.
If it is unfit to continue, then it's going to be eaten up by the bugs. But if you then clean it up like you're saying better nutrition, the bugs say, hey, we don't have any job left here, and they'll leave. And the best way to do that in nutrition, one of the best ways, is that the soil in which you're growing your plants needs to be very mineral rich. Some of the best fertilizer in the world is powdered granite, because it's the richest in minerals. And once those plants are healthy with the minerals, the bugs are just not going to eat the plants. I'll give you one example. A friend of mine here in North Dallas was growing some tomatoes in this way one time, and some other friends came over from Garland, and they said, Jim, why aren't the caterpillars eating up your tomatoes like they're eating all the tomatoes all over the city? And he said, because I use powdered granite as a fertilizer. And they said, well, we don't believe that. He said, well, go get some of your caterpillars and bring them back. And they did. And they put them on his plants, and they sat there for like 3 days and would not take one bite. It was not their job.
So the man who developed this design, and it's a Juice Plus product, okay? I have a website, susiehess.towergarden.com. Tower Garden. It depends on what you want to buy with it. I bought a 3-garden family pack because I knew I was going to go into this business, and I wanted to have one that I could put on display and a couple that I could either keep at home or maybe one that I could sell to somebody else. So I bought a 3-pack, and I bought some extra solution. Yeah. So for me, let's just say, and this was, yeah, this is the fun part. The price for one, just as it comes, without any extender kits, without wheels to put it on, that sort of thing. The price for one is less than $50 per month in a 6-month payout. Plus, is it 6 months or is it a year? Do you remember? You know what? Don't quote me on that, because honestly, I haven't looked at that part. What I paid was approximately $1,600 with the extra things that I bought, but I got 3 of them. I got extra gallons of the solution. I got an extra pump, an extra timer, some other things that I thought that I would need. I paid about $1,600 for that set, including shipping. Okay? But in my personal opinion, Mike and I are already spending at least $50 a week on fresh organic vegetables, because that's what we like to eat the most. You know, we're cooking at home, we're preparing salads and things at home. So if I can grow the bulk of that at home and cut the lettuce when it's fresh, and not, I have surrendered many lettuces, many things to the bottom bin of my refrigerator and let them go slimy and grody, which, you know, hey, I like them in my compost heap, but I'd much rather have them fresh. So, you know, if I can do my little part to bring my gardening home in a way that's manageable for me, then I'm extremely happy, and I'm happy to share it. And like I said, it's not for everybody. Not everybody wants to monitor the pH once a week and add water and add solution. But if you've got little kids or grandkids that, you know, if you can get them interested in growing things, be it in your backyard or in potted plants or in a hydroponic or aeroponic system like this, they're going to be so much more likely to eat those things than they are to reach for McDonald's French fries. Right? So anyway, I thank you for letting me talk about it. Yeah.
Someone run the microphone.
I'm wondering, since you're doing it, if I taught you, what is the BRICS rating on foods grown hydroponically? I'm just wondering if they talk to you guys about what is the BRICS rating on foods that are grown hydroponically compared to foods that are grown in the soil. Do y'all ever discuss that, or?
I honestly haven't gotten that far into it. Since I found out about this, well, we found out about this right after my dad had his heart surgery, which repaired his heart completely, right? But there are many other things that have been happening with him since then. So the percentage of my time dedicated to this has been about 1% of my entire time since I discovered it.
Yeah.
And most of that has been dedicated to just simply growing my own. So I haven't had a
well, I
lot
just
of
wondered if
research
that's
or other
something
chat. But that's a great question that I would love to find out more.
Brix rating it's directly associated with like micronutrient content.
Okay.
So it refers to the sugar levels in it, and you can get a little meter.
You can get a
buy
test. I would love to talk to you about the test kit for it, if you have something like that.
Well, you can just get it online.
Okay, Brix. All right. Thanks, guys. And I think it's probably about time for us to leave so that they can. What? 8:22. Okay.
Well, now it's time for, we're running out of time for questions. I think we're done with, do you have a question? No. Well, now we have time for rebuttals. So anybody has any rebuttals, now's your time. You want to respond to what the speaker had to say. All right, ma'am?
To add to what Susie was saying, if you go to newsmax.com, you can order for $5 a book by Dr. Joel Furman called Super Immunity. He was a medical doctor who took all of his patients and put them over onto a vegetarian diet, and they lost all of their diseases. Great book. It's $5, newsmax.com, Super Immunity.
There's a lady who came in late. She had an announcement she wanted to make. We'll let her do it.
So I'm Tracy. I've been here before talking about fluoride. Hi. And just wanted to reinforce what Regina was saying. That Activists for Truth, y'all are meeting on Monday nights? Yeah. Monday nights, so y'all can go there. Also, though, if anybody, I talked to the city. I submitted some information to the city. And I told them when we all went to talk at City Council, I said, hey, this is no longer debatable that fluoride is toxic. So I'm not really here to debate, how bad it is. It's really bad, and here's all the evidence, and I've submitted it to you. All you have to do is do the homework of reading it. And I got the feeling that they weren't real amused with the whole thing. People have tried on a number of occasions to get fluoride out of the water. So I just want to say they're working on it, I'm working on it, other people have worked on it in the past, and we really, really need for everybody to get involved. So with that, you can go to meetings Monday nights. I don't think y'all always talk about fluoride though. Y'all have other issues. I'm just doing fluoride, so I'm just kind of gathering people, letting people know that we need to get going on it. I'm trying to figure out how we can best approach the city because they want us to make a referendum, which takes a lot of time and maybe a lot of money. Some people say you can do it without a lot of money. Suing them would be a lot of money. Even if we sued their errors and omissions insurance, it's still a lawsuit. You still have to service everybody. So you have to make all these copies. So I don't know, maybe there's money needed, but we need to do something that's different than their long process. So that said, I'm looking into it with some lawyers, or I'm going to look into some lawyers who maybe have sued the city before successfully. So if you guys want to give me your emails and phone numbers, if you think you could get involved in any way, even if it's just showing up and being a warm body at City Council, that would be awesome. So that's it.
Rebuttal time.
Well, in response, and I don't know if this is exactly a rebuttal of the rebuttal, but of course we should be supportive of those who are feeling suicidal. No question about it. But I think we need to look for root causes. The root cause, in a general way, is that the future's been stolen. We don't have a sense, we don't have a compelling frontier that people are inspired about currently. And when we have things going on, I mean, I got involved writing letters back in the Serbian war under Clinton. I didn't really do much when we were going into Iraq under false pretenses. Now I find we're going into Libya and trying to go into Syria and all this, and I'm really tired of my government murdering people under the pretense that somehow they're representing me. I was very encouraged by what Michael was presenting about taking an independent stance of producing for ourselves. And I've had discussions with some of my absolutely most liberal friends and found out that we had a nexus, we had agreement on some things. And one of those things was distributed processing, creating things locally, rather than giving way to some central control. And I think we were talking about, Albert was talking about, well, do we have alien control at the top in some department of our government somewhere? I don't think we're really going to find out until we dump the Rothschild banking system. I think we've got to get them out of the way to be able to see clearly what really the future holds. So that's my response, is we need a new frontier. Thank you.
Any more rebuttals? Now's your chance. Come on up.
Well, let's be quick. A couple of folks have asked how they can get our story. Can't hear you. I've had a couple of people here ask us how they could find out about our story. You can go to our website, www.livingwarthetruth.com, and we also sell a little DVD for $10. It's got 3 hours worth of information, and that's how Joanne and I are existing now. The government's destroyed them. So, please pray for us, first of all, because the government is killing us, literally. Second, go to our website, get all the information, and if y'all would like to buy a DVD, we'd appreciate that help.
Any more rebuttals? Now's your chance. Well, come on up here. You going to rebut one of the speakers? Go ahead.
Because Tracy mentioned the Activists for Truth, we do meet on Mondays, every Monday at La Madeleine, which is right on Mockingbird, just next to SMU. And we are the activism part of all the thoughts and things like that. So fluoride is one of them, but, here we go. Women on the Wall, they visited us, and it was, and we tape all our things, and John comes and videos them, and now William's coming, and his DVDs are $5 after the day. But she was talking about Common Core. We tackle all kinds of things, so political and not, but I'd like you to come and talk about your, vegetation process. That'd be awesome, because a lot of the people in the group are survivalists, talking about other ways to do it. We help Monsanto, the March Against Monsanto. And what I call our group is, we're an umbrella group. So if someone has a passion or an event, we help promote it. I talk about you guys being here. I talk about the other groups that meet. It's a facilitating type group, and we unite all different kinds of ideas and people. So that's what we do. And then we put on events also. Once in a while we'll put on an event about something. But I don't want to take too much time, but it's Activists for Truth. And we're on Facebook, and we have a website. Sorry, 7 o'clock on Mondays. From 7 to 8, we talk about our organizational stuff, what we've done. Okay, we've got one that you guys might like, okay? It's the homeless in Dallas. I have a friend, preppy guy, he went to SMU, nice kid. He went undercover and stayed at the bridge, and he saw all the things that are going on. Our tax dollars are being taken, and then the wrong people are getting the money. They're talking about long-term housing, and people are freezing. There's 3,000 veterans that don't have homes, you know? This is ridiculous, and it's got to stop. So on the 22nd of January, a lot of homeless people are going to go to the city council and have their 3 minutes. They're going to be visible. There's going to be a lot of them. So, yeah, so this Monday and then next Monday. Okay, so the 6th and then the 13th, we're going to be talking about what's going to be going on the 22nd. And it's someone else that came up with this idea, but I believe in it. I think it's a great idea. And so, anyways, that was one of the things that's coming up. And it is, we have a serious problem with the homeless, and it's really not right, and it doesn't even have to be as bad as what it is. It's just not allocated properly as usual, and there could be other, you know, somebody told me a great idea. All the schools that have closed, that's a perfect place to house them. There's the gymnasium, because you can cordon off what area uses the heat, and they have the showers, you know? What a perfect place to house the homeless. And someone told me, I don't know if this is accurate, 40 schools closed this last year, Dallas area schools. Get the people off the streets even just for these really cold months. So, I mean, ideas like that. We're kind of those, is his name Michael? Michael, yes? Okay, I don't know anybody here, but I want to get to know you guys because I love what you had to say, and I've met you before. Anyways, but that's what it's all about in my world, you know? Getting to know everybody, find out what your strengths are, and we want to help you guys. So, okay, that's enough of me. Me? What?
We put together a little preliminary sketch of what housing could cost, and we could actually build about a 8,000 square foot facility that would house, don't make me lie to you, it's either 300 or 600 people. No, that was families. That was 600 families of 4 with all the sufficient showers and bathrooms and everything, limited entrance and exits for a couple $1 million. And that would be an R40 rated insulated structure. It'd be a steel building with R40 walls and ceiling. A few $1 million rather than the Dallas is spending over $120 million a year, and there's no permanent fix on anything. So there are modern construction techniques that can actually be used, and those permanent housing with R40 ceiling and R50 walls and ceiling, those things could be completely built from start to finish in about 6 months. R12 is normal. I'm talking about R50, like putting them in a cave. R50. R50. No. The deal is you take the gas out of the foam and the rating stays in place. If you take these, an R50 wall is about 9 or 10 inches wide. And a regular foam, this is steel inside and out. And a regular foam insulation loses the gas within the first year. So you might start off with an R30 that's this wide, and at the end of 12 months it's R15. This foam has got all the gas already taken out of it. So it'll be R50 20 years from now. And it's about 9 or 10 inches wide, and it's steel inside and out. And very, very cost effective. You can have as thin as 2-inch thick. Again, for interior walls and things that are 2-inch wall is about an R12, I think.
Are you guys in construction? It seems like you guys picked up on this construction. Yeah, but see,
Permatherm is that panel. It's the best out there.
If I may, I would like to stress one thing. Again, we need to help each other on the grassroots level. We need to find, like someone else mentioned, find people who need help and help them and encourage them when they can to go help somebody else. And instead of just 1 and 1 and 1, have them do 2, 4, 8 or 3, 9, 27 and so forth. Also, along that line, both the Moriartys and John Gentry have really been contributing to whistleblowing, essentially, some of the things that need to be exposed in this world. John goes around and has for years interviewing whistleblowers largely and making DVDs and getting that information out. and he's been suffering financially because he's dedicated much of his life to that. So any of you who can buy for $5 a DVD from John, please do it, and a DVD from the Moriartys for $10, please do that, because they need your help.
While we're on the subject of financial sustenance and cost, I just want to make a very quick correction, okay? The clarification. The family tower garden for 3 towers is almost $1,700 for a one-time payment, and that breaks down to about $145 a month for a year, okay? Plus shipping and applicable tax. The single garden by itself is $45 a month for 1 year, not 6 months. So I just wanted to be sure that you guys were aware of that. Since I did misstate the price earlier, it is a little bit more expensive than what I said. Okay.
Okay, we're practically running out of time, so we have another comment here. You better be quick.
It is a traditional practice for the men to sit around the barrel stove and solve the world's problems. But I found something very encouraging is happening, is the women are actually helping to solve the world's problems now, so we might actually get something done.
Oh, we're just about out of time. Anyone have any more comments they want to make, or any rebuttals they want to make? No, our speakers, they want anything they want to say, the ones that were up here. I guess that's about it anyway. I'll just say that I want to thank everybody for being here, and I hope we did well by you, didn't put you to sleep. And they kick us out here at 9 o'clock, just so you know. And we generally reconvene down at the Starbucks at the corner, and you're all welcome. We can hash on the speakers, whatever you want to do. And it's something to do anyway. Thank you for coming, and don't forget next week, so see you again. Thanks. I mentioned it before, it's U.S. Senate candidate Keisha Rogers, outlining for the future. It's on the back of that form there. There you are.
This is William, your videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please leave comments below, or like us, or follow us, and get notices of all our videos. We love it, even when you call. So when visiting the Barbex restaurant, tell them you want your reservation to the next College of Complex class.